Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial we're going to build a leave management system. So we're going to cover how to set up the tables and how those tables fit in relate to each other, and we're also going to implement approval flows within the applications and how those feed back to the actual request. So we're going to cover all those. So firstly, I'm just going to quickly go through the tables that we're going to create. These will be Dataverse tables. So we're going to have departments, job titles, which will be relating to the employees table. So the employee will have to define which department they're belonging to and their job title as well. And as you can see here, the relationship between these three tables rather, is that these are parent tables and employees as a child table, meaning to say one department can belong to, can actually have many employees, same as applies for their job titles. One job title can also be related to multiple employees as well. And one employee can also have multiple leave requests. Within the financial year, you can make multiple leave requests. So you also have to keep them in their own separate table in there as well. For each and every leave request, you also have to keep a hold of its leave type. So in the leave type, we're just going to cover to store the leave type name, the description, and the maximum days allowed. So if maybe it's a sick leave, maybe there's a predefined days that are allowed, you also have to set it up like that. And each leave type can also be, the relationship between the leave type and the leave request is a one-to-many relationship. So now that I've shown you how everything has been laid out in terms of the data, let's now go ahead and build these tables, build the application, and then implement the approval flows. Let's dive in. To create our application, so the best practice is to have everything in a solution. A solution acts as a container where all the components within your application will be contained in. So in your PowerApps Maker portal here, all you have to do is to go on your left-hand side, you click on Solutions. And then from here, you can add new solution, give it a name, and you can also select a publisher. If you don't have a publisher, you can just select New. And you also have got a default publisher, so you can also use that as well. Click Create. Now our solution has been created, and everything that will develop, being the Dataverse tables, Power Automate flows, and everything else will be inside of this container. So let's go ahead and create our tables. The first tables that I'm going to create are the departments and the job titles. So inside of your solution, click on New, the drop down, click on Table, Advanced Properties, and then give it a name. I'll just give it a name of LM for leave management dash our table name. So that will be our naming prefix. All right. So department, the primary column, I want it to be department name. So for this table, we're done. I'll also do the same for the job titles tables. All right. So inside of our solution, okay, do the same thing. Click on New, Table, Advanced Properties, and then also give it the name of job title. And the primary column should be job title. All right. Save that. So inside of our job title, we only have got two columns, which is the job title plus the description. So I'll go to columns here, and then I'll click on new column at the top, and then I'll give this one a name of description. And this one should be a multi-line text. So hover over text. At the very bottom, you see that there's multi-line text. Single line text limits you to 100 characters, but plain text, you can expand it depending on your situation. If you want to have a lot of information under description, then I advise you use multi-line text. All right. So that has been done. Click on Save. All right. And what we need to do now is to set up the form that will be used to enter the job titles or to read the job title information. And we also have to set up the view on which how the columns or the the items will be itemized or in a table format. So first of all, here on columns, we're still in the job titles table. On the columns, I'll click on the drop down and then I'll select on the views. So here I'll focus on the active views. These are all the views that are in active, because each and every item in Dataverse, it has got a status. It can either be on or off. So if it's active, we're saying that, okay, those are the ones that we're showing up in the application. So for those ones, how do we want them to look like? So first of all, we'll have the job title, and we'll just drag our description here as well. I don't think we necessarily need to have created on. And job title, we can also reduce the size to 200 pixels, and description, because it's a lot of information, we can leave it at a 300 pixels. Save and publish. You can also change the name of the view itself, because here we've used LM as our prefix for this solution so that we navigate across the tables quickly. It's easy to identify, but for the users using the application, the LM wouldn't make any sense. So you can also just rename the view from here to just read active job titles. All right. When everything you do, if you make any changes to the view, make sure you don't forget to save and publish at the top right corner here. When it's done, it will give you a check mark and it will say save and published. And I'll just go back. The final thing that we need to do here is to set up our form. So click on the drop down view whilst we're still in the same job title table, and then click on form. And from here, what we need to focus on is on the information table form, which is form type of main. This one is the actual form that will be utilized within the model driven app. It will be the one that we'll be using to enter data in within the solution, within the Dataverse table, and then we'll also be used to retrieve the data as well. So click on the ellipsis, edit. And on our form here, we have got job title because it's our primary column. What I'll do is I'll just drag this description and add it there. Now remember, we had defined description as multi-line text. So if you leave it the way I've done here, just dragging it and putting it on the form, what will happen is when you've added a lot of information, a lot of text, you have to scroll within the field, this size. You have to scroll down within the actual field to read all that information. But if you want the field to expand automatically without you scrolling down, what you do is, whilst you've selected the multi-line text, you go on your right hand side here, and then you see here there's use all the available vertical space. So you can pretty to say, okay, I want my multi-line text field to be 5 rows. You see that it will expand it here, but that's not, I don't like to actually set it up like that, because you might have scenarios where you only have few information, and it doesn't make sense for you to have a large real estate for few information. So what I do is I default it at 1 row, but I just select this use all available vertical space. So what I'll do is, depending on the text, the amount of text that I've added in, it will expand or reduce its size accordingly as well. We don't need to show our owner field. So this one I will just select it, I'll hide it. The reason why I'm not removing it here is because the owner field is mandatory. So everything that is mandatory on the form, you cannot delete it. As I've selected owner here, you see that at the top here I only have undo, cut, and so on and so forth. But if I select description, because description is not a mandatory field shown by not having the asterisk sign here, you see that delete is available at the top here. So keep that in mind. So I'll select owner. I can come to the top here, click on hide. It will hide the owner field, or you can also do that on your right hand side here. That also works perfectly. All right. So let's finalize on the departments, because here we're done with the job titles table. I've saved and published. So let's quickly just do the same for our departments table. So on the left hand side here, I'll go to tables. I'll expand on departments. I'll select the forms, and then I'll select the main form. For the departments, we have got the department name, and we can also add the department description, which is also a multi-line text. Save that. And we'll do the same thing, drag it to our form here. And then we also using vertical space. We don't necessarily need to have the owner field there as well. So I'll hide it here. And then I'll save and publish. And then we'll just set up the view for our departments table. So on forms, whilst we are in the departments table, click on the forms drop down, click on views, and I'll edit the active LM departments view. And from here, we have got the department name. I'll go to custom, drag description here, and we don't need to have the created on. I'll also just set up the sizes to 200 and the description as well. I'll also set it up to, I can just set up to 300. All right. And we're sorting the departments in alphabetical order by the department name. Save and publish. All right. Now our two tables have been added, which is the department and the job title. How do these two tables relate to the employee table? In our solution here, all right, I'll add a new table. This table, I'll call it LM employees. And the display name here, the primary column, I'll give it employee ID. All right, I'll give it employee ID. I'll save this. Now you recall that we're building this in Dataverse, and in Dataverse we already have a users table, and in our employees table here we have defined it to say we'll have the first name, the last name, the email, and so on and so forth. But information like first name, last name, email, it is something that is already contained within Dataverse, and it is stored in the users table. So the question is, should we go ahead and duplicate those columns, or should we just recycle items that are already in the system? I always like to utilize what is already handed over, what has already been given to us. So what I'll do is, instead of people typing in the first name, last name, they'll just be selecting themselves from the users table. All right. So what I'll do is I'll go to columns. Let me show you how to set that up. And then I'll add a new column. And this one, I'll give it a name of employee name. Okay. This one will be a lookup column. A lookup column is a column that is accessing data from another table. So it's looking up from data within another table. So that's the definition of a lookup column. Which table are we relating to? Is the users table, which is a default custom table that is provided by Dataverse. I'll save that. All right. So now, how do we automatically define the first name, the last name, and so on and so forth? And because we've already defined to say, okay, we have got we've selected the name from the users table. Do we have to now type in the first name and the last name? No, you don't have to do that. What you can do is you can add a column, and this one I'll just give it a name of full name. And it won't be a single line text, it will be a formula field. So now for the formula, you can define it to say, I want to get data from the employee name column, and then you add a dot. And then what it's doing now there, because it's a lookup column, it will now give you the columns inside of the other table that you're looking up from. So here, this is the information that we have from the users table. And as you can see here, the moment I start searching for full name, I can have my full name there, and it has also predefined the format to say this is text. You can also configure to say this is a phone number, so on and so forth. But that's how easy it is to add calculated columns inside of Dataverse. All right. So we have got the email, because the email is already sitting in the users table. We have got the full name of the employee. Now, let's relate our employee to the job title and the department. It's as simple as just clicking on new column, give it a name of department, and then here it will be a lookup column. It's looking up from the departments table. So we have ours as LM department. Save that. And let's add in the job title as well. So the job title is also a lookup column. So new column. And this one is job title. And the data type is lookup. Let's select lookup. Looking up from the job title, which is the LM job title. Save that. And then we also have to indicate who is the person's manager. So you can add a new column and give it a name of manager. This one is also a lookup. We can look up from the users table. So now that we've added all of our columns in our employees table, let's go ahead and add all those fields onto our form, and let's also set up the view as well. So I'll click on the, whilst we're in the employee table, I'll click on the drop down next to columns, and then I'll go to forms. Make sure you're editing the main form. All right, on here, I'll just filter out. There's some other instances where you have got a lot of columns, so you don't want to be bombarded with the custom columns as well. So you can just filter them here by just selecting custom. And then we have got our employee ID here. The employee ID, I want it to be automated. I want it to be auto incremented. I don't want to be typing in manually. So from the employee ID, you can add it as an auto number, and then you can also specify the prefix to say AMP dash 1001. If you want it to be 6 letters, 6 numbers, you can also do that as well. If you want to add date to maybe the employee here as part of the employee number, you can also add date prefix. So it will also be there as well. Or if you choose to maybe customize it, you can also set it up like that. And if you want to have a custom column, you can also do that. So you can say, maybe I want to have EMP dash the date dash the sequence number. So you can play around with depending on your scenario and your what exactly you want. And because this one is auto incremented, we don't have to have it as a business required field, so it can just be optional because the system will be handling the updating. We don't want to stopping our users from adding in new employees because it is a mandatory field. But this one, because the system column, I can now drag it to the top here so that we have enough real estate for our items here. So here I'll drag in the employee name, which is a lookup. I'll drag in the department, and I'll also drag in the job title and the manager, and I don't want to have this owner, so I'll hide it as always. For this one, I think we are done on the form configuration. So now let's just complete with the view configuration, and then we'll dive into how to build to add the remaining tables. And after the remaining tables, we'll go ahead and build the model-driven app. So let's set up the view, active view as always. On our view, I don't necessarily need to have the employee ID as 300 pixels. I'll give it 100. And then here, I'll drag our full name. It'll be there. And then I'll drag our job title there, our department there as well, and our manager, the created on date, will also have it there as well. So I'll save and publish. All right. So let's go ahead and add in these two remaining tables, and then we'll go through how to set up the model-driven app. And after that is done, we'll also set up the approval workflows. So let's go ahead. Now that all of our tables have been created, let's go ahead and create the model-driven app. So inside of our solution, at the top, new, and this one will be an app, model-driven app. Give it a name. Click create. Right, so click on add page, Dataverse table. And the reason why I was adding the prefix is to ensure that it's easy for us to locate all of our tables. So by just searching LM, you can just select all of your tables from here. All right, add and show on navigation. And as you can see here, we only have got new group here. So you can just name it to say leave manager. All right, and we don't want to be seeing LM or this LM. We can just click on the view, click on settings, and then you can just delete the LMs. So you can do that for everything. So it will just keep the table name. All right. When you're satisfied with the configurations, you can click on save at the top right corner. And after it has completed saving, you can click on publish, which is the next button next to it. And after you've published your configurations, you can go ahead and play the app. There we are. Our application has been created. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and add sample data to it. And then we'll also have to configure what happens when I send something for approval. All right. Where are we getting the information of the approver? And then how are we requesting the approval request from the end user? So let's configure that. So I'll add in the sample data, but before we do add the sample data, what I'll do is I'll walk you through the leave request table. On the leave request table, if I'm to mimic adding a new record, a new leave request, you see that here I have got the send for approval, which is a yes or no. It's a Boolean, but it's defaulted to no. So if I'm satisfied with everything that I've added, I want to send it for approval. This will be our trigger for our flow. So whenever it's yes, it will now send that for approval. Who is it sending it the request to? It has to send to the approving manager. So the approving manager is someone that we're getting from the users table. So if I'm to select that this is Steve here, right? The system has to know that, okay, Steve, there's this request here with these details that is pending your approval. So it has to send me that approval request. So let's go back to this tab and let's go back to our solution. Inside of our solution, I'll add new. This one will be an automation and it will be a cloud flow and it will be automated. All right. But before I do that, let me just duplicate this tab so that we can be working in two spaces here. So automation, cloud flow, this one will be automated. It won't be manually triggered. It will trigger when a certain state changes within the table, which is when sent for approval is equal to yes. All right. So now let's give our flow a name. And this one, the trigger is when a row has been added, modified, or deleted from Microsoft Dataverse. So the change type that we want is when an item has been modified. All right. And the table name, this one is in the LM leave requests. The scope should be across the whole organization. And the filter rows, modified. You can filter to say, I just want to trigger when only this particular field has been modified, so that you're not triggering the flow each and every time that you make any amendments to the record that you've already created. So let's go back to our tables and I'll open up the leave request here. And if I go to columns, all right, because the way Dataverse stores these records, it's not that it's just sent for approval. There's an underlying column label that you need. So what I'll do is I'll identify to say send for approval. I'll open that column, and then if I scroll down, click on advanced properties, you see here I've got the logical name. So copy this logical name, and then I'll bring it here. So I'm just selecting this. All right. So when this particular field has been updated, trigger the flow. And we can also add an expression to say only trigger when the send for approval column is equal to, and then we can select to say it's equal to yes, which is equal to 1. So here you can just say is equals 1. What should happen when that happens? First of all, we need to get the information of our approving manager. And because this is a lookup column, what we need to do in our flow is to now use Dataverse, because it's still in Dataverse. And what we use is this step here called get a row by ID. I'll rename it to say get approver details. And from here, I'm getting it from the users table, because that's the table that we are relating to. All right. And which is the row ID? The row ID is the value of the approving manager. All right. What else do we need to create? We also need to get the leave type. The leave type is also a lookup column, which is taking its data from another table. So we also need to do the same. All right. So we're getting the row by ID, and I'll just rename it as well. Get leave type details. Leave types, and here we are getting the value of the leave type, this one. The other thing that I want to get as well is who is requesting, because the manager needs to know that this request is coming from this individual. So we're going to add another get row by ID, and this get row by ID, it's get requester info, and we're getting it from the users table, same as the approver. And on here we're getting the value from this, which is the employee name value. Okay, after this is done, then we have to send an approval. All right, so just search for approval, and then what you have here is to say you can now create an approval. You can start and wait for an approval. You can start and wait for an approval text. So here, what we'll do is we'll create an approval. It will load up. Now, because we have got the information here, all of the information has been added here. The approval type, this one will be approve, everyone must approve or reject. And what is the title? Leave request for employee name. Let's just search for employee name or full name. So here we're getting it from the get requester information, which is this step here. So I'll get the full name, leave request for, assigned to, which email are we adding here? We have to add email from the approver details. So here I'll say primary email, not for the requester, but for the approver details, which is the primary email. Details, I can specify here to say dear name of our approver. I can also just get it from here, which is full name, not the requester, but the approver, comma, a new leave request of type. Remember, we got the type, leave type details from here. So I can specify here to say, what is the leave type name? Okay, from the leave type details, I can say, I can add it there. A new leave type or a new leave request of type, blah, 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 has been assigned to you for approval. Okay, with have been assigned to you for approval. We already have defined here to say leave request for this individual, so we don't have to specify it again. But if you want to specify it again, you can also add it in there as well. And your leave request has been with type has been assigned to you for approval with the following details. So in our leave request, what information do we have? We have got the reason. All right, so I'll add in here to say the reason, then semicolon, and then I'll just search for reason. Okay, this is the reason. And we also have the start date and end date. So we can also just add start date and end date. So end date, let's have it from the trigger, which is the end date, and the start date, let's just also get it from there. Start date. All right, so item link, we also need to provide our approver with a link, a direct access link, to be able to get a hold of that particular leave request. So how do you go ahead and do that? So in Dataverse, if you are to click on the record, all right, I'll just save this just as for the sample. If you click on the URL here, you see that it will give you all these mumbo jumbo here, and then at the very end you have got this unique ID. So this unique ID is auto generated by the system. So what you need is you want to get everything that is in front of that unique ID, and then you bring it here. All right, so where are we getting the ID? The ID, we are getting it from our trigger here. So our trigger is leave request, and leave request will be the unique ID. So here, this hex code, this GUI ID that is at the very end here is this one. So for each and every item, we'll be doing that. So for the item link description, describing the link is view details. All right, so now this leave request here, it is going to be sending out an email, and it will also be available in Microsoft Teams. So the person who's approving an item, they can go into Microsoft Teams, they can see the leave requests, and they can also go to the Outlook as well. It will also be there. So therefore, we don't need to have another step of sending an email, of requesting, and so on and so forth. So now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and populate the information, the sample data in our application, and then we'll run a test to see how everything is flowing together from the application all the way up to the flow that we've just created here. I've gone ahead and added all the sample data. So now I'll walk you through the process of a requester requesting the leave, and then I'll also walk you through the experience of the approving manager on how they can take action on an item that has been submitted. So on our application here, on our leave manager, I'll go to the leave request, click new. Here on approving manager, I'll add myself for the demo, and then I'll select to say this is a sick leave and I'm so sick. All right, the start date 17th, maybe I'll come back on the 18th. I don't have to specify my name, my employee name here, because what will happen is the moment I save this record, it will automatically tag it as me. So everyone who's requesting, they can come in whenever they just have to populate this information here, and this will be automatically populated. So when I'm okay with the information that I've shared here, if maybe we can also add a supporting documents tab where I can add in, let's say, a doctor's card, doctor's review, and so on and so forth as a supporting document. So you can go ahead and add that. But when I'm okay with this information, as you can see here, I cannot add the approver comments because it's locked out. When I'm okay with this, what I'll do is I'll just click on yes, and then I'll save and close. What will happen now is the person who's the approving manager will receive a notification. All right, the notification will come into their Teams, as you can see here, and it will also come into their Outlook. So in their Teams, as you can see here, leave request for Stephen, dear Stephen, as the new manager, a new license request, so on and so forth. The reason, remember we had added it as I'm so sick, the start date, end date, and I have got the view leave details here. And now if you are to go and open my item here, you see that it has automatically updated to pending approval. This is because on our Power Automate flow, before we send for approval, all right, we've updated it to pending approval. And all the results here, we are starting and waiting for an approval, which means that now currently the flow is still running in the background until a feedback has been attained from here. So this information, the way we've set it up here, is the way it's coming from the here to say this is the new request, reasons, your start date, end date, and so on and so forth. That is here, or the way we've laid out here. The URL and the view details is the same view details that we have when we scroll down here to say view details. Now we have got a condition. The condition is checking if the outcome of this step here, because we're starting and waiting for an approval, so it is still running. So if the outcome is equal to approve, what we'll have to do is to now update the status of our transaction here, our request here, to approved. And we should also add the comments, the response comments, the comments that are coming from this step here. We should also add them there. If the request has been rejected, same rules apply here. All right. So let's just test it out to say, okay, all right, you deserve the rest. Please proceed, and I can approve here. But before I approve, you also have got more actions here. You can also reassign this to someone else, or you can cancel requests and so on and so forth. But for now, I'll just click on approve. The moment I do that, this item has been approved. If I go back to my record here and click a refresh, you see that it has been approved and my comments have also been added here. And if I were to go to the Power Automate flow, this Power Automate flow has completed its run. So basically, what we've done here is to set up the tables, show you how you can initiate an item, and also show you how approvals can be done and executed outside of Dataverse or outside of your application, but still whatever is happening outside there can also be updated back into your solution here, into your record that you've done here, that you've raised earlier. So that's what I had prepared for you. I know it's a bit longer than usual, but I just wanted you to appreciate the approvals as well. Much as I've covered a lot of Dataverse, but I also wanted you to also have an experience of what Power Automate and other tools within Power Automate can aid you as a business to handle approvals, and how those approvals are consolidated onto the same record within the application. If you do have any questions in regards to this topic or any other topics that you may have, please do feel free to add them in the comment section below. And I wish you a very good day. Cheers.